She will explain. She's here to tell about it. You may recognise the symptoms yourself. And she's calling on the NHS to take women seriously after giving evidence to MPs about her experience. We're going to speak to her next.
You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV1. In just a moment, but first, here's what she told MPs last week. Of this, to know that something isn't right, to feel something wrong, that must have been the worst, because we all rely on doctors and you think, oh, that'll be OK. I mean, that must have been the worst moment for you.
We all put so much faith in, like, medical professionals, you know, and I was completely shocked to be treated the way I was, you know, but it's so indoctrinated in me that they're right and they know what's wrong, and if they say there's nothing, then evidently there isn't. So when I went and explained what was wrong and was told, you know, it's just PMS, every other woman in the world is going through it, they're just not making as much of a fuss as you, I felt embarrassed and I felt weak that they were able to cope, all these other brilliant, shiny, strong women, and I couldn't.
I mean, part where you can point to it, it's you don't feel confident, do you, in that, in the same way as you do as something that can be shown on an X-ray?
Exactly. And I think currently 10% of women in the UK are suffering with PMDD. But
yeah, just explain.
The best way I've ever heard it described is PMDD is like building a sandcastle of, you know, good habits, great relationships, positive thoughts, you know, going for morning runs, drinking your green juice, giving birth to an avocado, whatever it is, comes and takes away all those things and leaves only hopelessness and despair. And just as you're rebuilding your castle again, that wave crashes again.
Right.
It's this constant, it's just a constant cycle. And for me, I experienced, although some people can have different symptoms, it was despair, hopelessness, overwhelm, chronic fatigue, crippling anxiety, and in some of the darker moments, it was suicidal thoughts.
Gosh, now, and not realising that there is something...
So 10% of women in the UK are diagnosed with PMDD, but the number of people suffering could be much higher. It's often misdiagnosed as depression, which actually was one of the first things I got offered when I explained my symptoms. I got offered antidepressants.
And would that have been helpful?
I think if I was suffering with depression and if every day I woke up and I felt feelings of despair and hopelessness, and I would take antidepressants. I have no problem accepting that, you know. However,
this was different.
It was different, Kate. Like, I love my life. I'm very fortunate. I'm mentally strong and all the rest of it. This is just 10 days of the month. And I don't think it's too much to ask for women suffering with PMDD to be treated for that rather than depression, because they are.
Do you treat PMDD, though?
So, like a lot of things, it's not a one-size-fits-all with medication. And because my diagnosis is relatively recent, the last 2 months, I'm on sort of the first course of action, which is always like a combination contraceptive pill. And I'm hopeful that I'll sort of get the results I'm after and the symptoms will alleviate. But there is other avenues to explore.
And how do you feel with yourself right now?
For me, I'm speaking to you today, and what I've affectionately started to call me PMDD fog.
And is that because it's the
cycle? So I can talk to you confidently, I can articulate myself, I feel like I'm deserving to be here. But if you caught us last week, it would have been a whole different...
So last week we
learned to sort of get on with it, because obviously my job is a lot of interfacing and stuff like that. But honestly, I felt, looking at that clip there, I was a nervous wreck, whereas I'm quite content with yous now. So it is
nice to hear.
Cheery MPs.
Brave thing to come out and say it.
Obviously, my main platform is social media, and that's how I predominantly talk about things. Like I was doing something really good.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And you have done something.
It's great. You know, you were at the Women's Equalities Committee.
Let's hope that's a good week.
And thanks very much. So, look, if you've been affected...
So much, Vicky. And go to the doctor. Well, they'll sort it out. They'll tell me what's going on.
Suicidal thoughts, which could be...
And then every month a week.
And what is the treatment for that? What?
Did.
Ah.
Yeah. So I had... Well, you're so lovely.
Yeah, that was great. And to be able to sort of...
Of that as well is that the sort of symptoms you...
I think there'll be people at home now listening to you.
Time of the month, or... Is it?
It's a certain type of...
Do you think you would have been able to...
Have you had reaction generally to this? Because
that felt like...
something really good.
Thank you.
Oh, my God. That's going to be a great wedding.
For any of the issues...
Vicky joins us now. Vicky, I can't imagine, what I wouldn't, as a woman, what it must be to go through all it.
So, honestly...
How are you feeling at the moment?
I feel really grateful, actually, because